name is Catherine Etienne, President of BliackLines of Design. Today we get to showcase Nicole Holland Dennis, owner of Aris Architect. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you for having me.
We want to start off with a couple brief questions. First, telling us a little bit about your childhood, your background, your birthplace, and how you actually decided that you wanted to be an architect.
Those are very good questions. Thank you. I was actually born in Brooklyn to Caribbean parents.
Mm-hmm.
They were both immigrants,
Mm-hmm.
who were first generation, my brother and I. And we moved while we were young to Queens. And I remember as a young child even that the neighborhood, although it was considered a middle class neighborhood, there were elements about the neighborhood that didn't seem right. Like some of the churches were actually housed in abandoned theaters that were renovated to serve as churches. So, even as a young child, I was thinking to myself, that didn't seem correct, I definitely was very artistic as a child. I drew a lot. I did little competitions. I don't know if you remember, you had little competitions you would mail,
Right.
so I would do those, and I really enjoyed colors, and I actually wanted to be an artist.
Okay.
But my parents at the time felt that that may not be sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
So being, kind of French Caribbean, my father from Haiti and my mom from Martinique, their aspirations are always to be professional. They want their child to be either a doctor, a lawyer. That's about really the top two, doctor or lawyer. Anything else doesn't really count. But they wanted me to choose a profession.
Right.
So I decided, I think in middle school, when I was in 8th grade, that I was interested in seeing communities improve, and there was a kind of social consciousness that my parents had, planted the seed within us, So I think the combination of artistic expression and social consciousness were things I was most attracted to in architecture.
Okay. What age did you know you wanted to be an architect?
I remember distinctly in 8th grade.
Okay.
Yes, I was 13, quite young. I already knew things about what I enjoyed to know that I probably didn't want to be a doctor.
Okay.
I was, I think, too emotionally sensitive.
Okay.
And I really didn't do well, kind of like medical, side of blood and those kind of things. So, I knew early on that I thought I would be interested in architecture. Even as a freshman in college, even though I was already enrolled in architecture, I didn't really consciously make the final decision for myself until I worked as an intern.
Okay.
That's when I said, I am going to be a great artist.
Okay. So tell us who was actually responsible for you choosing that path.
There was one person. It was both parents. They were just very supportive.
Okay.
Yeah.
All the projects that you've done in Haiti?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about those.
The one that we started and constructed and completed last year is called the S Wall. Okay. And it's a conscious decision on my part as a designer to focus for Haiti on permanent housing. There's been a lot of attention to temporary and transitional housing, which quite honestly I think there's very sophisticated portable tents that really solve that problem. And I think in terms of economic sense, the portable tents really do serve the purpose, and no family should expect to live for longer than a short while under tent conditions. Okay. So this is why I consciously went beyond the transitional housing and we went directly to what is a sustainable building type in Haiti, which they do concrete block. Unfortunately, it's without regulation and without inspection. So whether or not they do it correctly is the problem. So for this particular house, we call it the S Wall. Okay. Affectionately, we call it Haiti House for Life, suggesting that it is for permanence.
Okay. Okay.
the S wall itself is, we decided to use a concrete block, and it happens to have very strong design characteristics that keep it hurricane proof and earthquake proof. If you can imagine, the wall itself is an S, so each unit is kind of self-bracing, it's like an arc. So the wall becomes exponentially stronger, and it has to be, of course, properly reinforced, with reinforcement bars laterally and vertically. We came upon the design, the structural aspects of it were really a byproduct of the programmatic solution. We wanted a very simple way to divide in a small house, kind of semi-private functions from semi-public functions. So that's how we came up with the idea of the S.
Beautiful.
I did this in collaboration with one of my great architectural friends. So the way that the house lays out is that the semi-public part of the house faces the front, which is the living room and the dining room, kind of like, you can have that kind of more Western and modern function where the kitchen is open to the living space, so it's like very social. And the semi-private spaces, the bedrooms and bathrooms, are facing what would be an interior court. If you can imagine in the site plan of it, you'd see a continuous S, if they're going to be connected or not, that's by choice. And then the semi-private spaces would be all facing the interior portion of the block. So you have like a shared communal, backyard space for the children. Maybe that's the elderly, who are watching the children. The idea of extended family is still very strong in Haiti. It was a design competition by in Zoulanger, Haiti, not too far from the airport in Port-au-Prince. And we were very happy to we have bragging rights over how quickly we got it built. It was completed in 21 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was a success.
We really enjoyed it. And one last element about it that I want to not omit is the attention that we gave to what would make it more Haitian, and that we incorporated in the detailing. For example, in the windows, for security, what we did was take the concept of Haitian metal cutwork, cut art, metal cut art, and have decorative security bars, let's call it, for lack of a better term, so that it actually decorates the house in a very kind of Haitian way. So you can look at it, although the design is quite contemporary and and sensible in that sense. It still has a Haitian flair, and the hope is that it would also engage the art community in the construction process.
All right. In terms of the structure and the idea of creating the S for the structure in Haiti, that project almost seems unheard of. Can you elaborate a little bit more as to why you came upon this idea?
As I first mentioned, we actually came up with it. It was a programmatic solution. You wanted a kind of simple, clean, and easy construction to solve really, elements of the program, separate private from public. But then, after doing some analysis, structural analysis, we found in looking at the destruction of the earthquake that really what we saw is Haiti, for the most part, had 1- and 2-story buildings, and they're very poorly constructed. But what you saw is that the corners of the buildings, for some of them that were in the horizon of the quake, actually withheld the quake because one wall was supporting the other. There was certain rigidity. What would happen at the middle of the wall is that the wall would disconnect from the roof joist, and then the middle of the wall was left to kind of flat. And so, for example, as you go from corner to corner, almost like a U shape, because the middle of the wall was just left with no reinforcement. So when we actually did computer analysis, and we'll have it when we show you of how the wall performs in S walls, it's continually bracing. So it's actually a very, very strong wall. So when we saw that, we were like, well, this is great. Because not only are we solving the programmatic issues, but structurally it's very sound and flexible.
And environmental as well.
and in terms of, environmental, in terms of withstanding wind as well, not creating a right angle, to reduce the lag of the wind turning the corner. So that competition itself was very interesting. We had, a few celebrities came to. There was Donna Karen, who as a designer really appreciated the fact that we went the extra kind of creative mile to do something that was sensible and practical, yet had an innovative and inspiring feel to it. And like our show also came to our house. And it was great. Former President Clinton was there as well, and President Martelli was there as well. So it was quite a great experience.
It sounds like it was a really remarkable project.
In fact, we're now getting the benefits of the exposure that it did lend us. In the north of Haiti, there is a 200-unit medical housing campus that we're responding to, and we're in good favor to receive that. There's downtown housing in Port-au-Prince that we're responding to as well.
Would you like to continue in the rebuilding process in Haiti?
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me answer that by first saying that I have a tremendous affinity for Haiti on a multiple level. A lot of it is personal because my father was such a patriot, and he came to the U.S. at the time when there were, what we call boat people at the time.
Right.
So he was very instrumental, very much a community activist, and so he really did impart a lot of his feelings and affinity for his homeland to my brother and I. So that's on a personal level. On a broader level, in terms of being someone of color in a challenging situation here in the U.S., I really, really learned to appreciate Haiti for its historical value. It has what I've heard people refer to as a lot of spiritual capital, especially for people of the African diaspora, just simply based on what Haiti achieved in its history. He's referred to many times as the eldest daughter of Father Europe and Mother Africa, and really took a bold stance with the first Caribbean slave island to take their own independence. And so for that, a lot of different cultures have taken notice of what was accomplished.
Right.
And so my affinity for Haiti is very strong.
Right.
Okay, so having established that.
Yes.
I'm also privy to know, even as a Haitian American who only visited Haiti occasionally to be with cousins and that kind of thing, with my aunts and have quite a few family members in Haiti. I only recently had access professionally, and but I did have the fortune of understanding that the professionals in Haiti are quite sophisticated. These are brilliant, talented professionals that I respect. I have very high regard for them, respect tremendously. They've been educated all over the world. Some of the prominent ones that come to mind are the former Minister of Tourism, Patrick Gouverture, who did his undergraduate at Howard University and Columbia, and there's Frederick Malvanez, who did his undergraduate. His father, who was a very well-known architect in Haiti, did his undergraduate studies at Cornell University, my undergraduate alma mater. And so, these are folks who really understand urban design, and these are top-notch international minds. So too often I see some folks who may not really understand what they're dealing with. The international community, for the most part, I think anyone who's educated understands that they're dealing with top professionals in Haiti. But at times you might think people kind of come in and think that it's a green field.
Yes, yes,
And,
yes.
it's a palette for them to, express themselves. So moving forward, we've been engaging in collaboration, with the existing, um, architects and urban planners there.
Okay.
And we've been invited to, different projects,
Good.
which I'm looking forward to.
Yes. Great.
Okay. Where do you see as architects within the next 5 to 10 years?
Um, great question, great question. So we were established in 2001
Mm-hmm.
as Aris Architects Sole Proprietorship.
Mm-hmm.
We became a PC,
Mm-hmm.
and then later on an LLP.
Mm-hmm.
And in the future, near future, we will be an LLC.
Okay.
And I am at liberty
Okay.
to discuss collaborations with Patrick Colbert, who
Okay.
is a very good architect here in New York.
Okay.
And one thing, the reason
Mm-hmm.
I created a firm that had a name of its own
Mm-hmm.
is because I felt that too often people of color, I think because the resources, tend to be tight given our
Mhm.
history,
Mm-hmm.
so it's very difficult to create and maintain
Mm-hmm.
collaborations. And I just recently heard Cory Booker, here of New Jersey, on I get my news from This Week, George Stephanopoulos on Sunday mornings, and he quoted an African proverb that
Mhm.
says, "If you want to go quickly, you
Mhm.
go alone.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go far, you go with many."
Mm-hmm.
So my principles are based on sustainability and going far. I really didn't want to be like a individual architect.
Right.
you
Right.
know.
Mm-hmm.
So my vision for Aris, we've been very successful over the past couple of years. It's been
Okay.
very challenging.
Right.
Is to grow to a sizable firm,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd like to engage with larger firms
Mhm.
to do larger projects.
Mhm.
Some of my favorite building types are museums.
Nice.
Yeah, I love architecture that tells a story.
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to make me a happy architect,
Tell
give me a
your
beautiful
story.
museum to design. So in 5 to 10 years,
Yeah.
that's what I see.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay. Now, outside of Haiti and the United States, have you done work in any other countries? And if not, would that be something that you would consider?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it does seem ambitious, and let's see what the future holds. But I love new challenges. I love the flexibility of design. I love innovation. I love things I've never thought of before or heard of before. I was quite impressed by Scofidio and their design on the Washington Mall. Or I forget the name of the building. So to go back to the innovation, how they really they were charged with doing an expansion on a very revered existing building on the Washington Mall. So what do? They came up with something I thought was phenomenal, and the fact that it was accepted by DC, I think, is even more phenomenal because it's so innovative. It's this, it's a balloon, really. The existing building is a large donut, and so they wanted to think of a unique way to enclose the interior courtyard and make it more usable space. So instead of putting, a glass atrium, which was in, first reaction, I think, of any good architect, they came up with this expandable, it looks like an acrylic material that is hung from the existing building. So they really don't do anything structurally to the existing building. They just add these connection cables, and I really don't know exactly how it works, but it has to do with the air pressure. And if somehow there's ever a puncture, it is suspending, and it does have solutions for if it's, in the uninflated version, yes. And so, I mean, that is innovation.
Right.
Who thought of that, that I love the idea of experimenting with new materials
Okay.
and new solutions.
Tell us a little bit about some of the projects that you've been doing here in the United States.
Okay, we have been in practice for over 10 years now
Okay.
as Aris architects.
Okay.
Myself, I've been practicing for close to 20 years, over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
We started with, largest contract was the Port Authority.
Okay.
It was 6 miles of roadway beautification, hardscape, signage, road protection, landscape, with Elizabeth Kennedy. That afforded us contracts with the School Construction Authority. We did quite a few contracts for them, mostly capital improvement, over a dozen. And we did work for the GSA, General Services Administration. They administered the competition for the African Burial Ground National Monument.
Yes.
So we were quite honored to be involved with that project. That was really just a tremendous life-changing experience. We were granted this awesome responsibility. That exposure gave us, although it was dedicated in 2007 and the market crashed shortly after.
Right.
I think really the namesake actually allowed us to gain enough contracts to stay open.
Stay afloat.
Yes.
Yes.
We did some multiple dwelling housing for HPD and some designs for churches and other residential work and some hospitality work.
I want you to share with us some of the challenges, and if not challenges, benefits that you face as a female architect in the industry.
Very good question, and I love talking about this because it really is a struggle, and we generally bear it so well. It's just like minorities in general, you wind up being overly qualified because you really have to compensate for negative energy that's out there. And so in terms of the struggle, that's really what it's been about proving your value as an architect. People tend to want to believe that as an interior designer, and they might, in a room in a meeting, if there's like an interior question or something about, the material, they tend to gravitate.
Right.
Just generally in having a partnership with my former partner who is male, people would generally at times believe that I'm somehow assistant to the real architect. Those were like the challenges. In terms of the opportunities, thanks to those women that have worked so hard to keep it all together, to excel in their profession, we have created the idea that there are extremely competent leaders in all the industries. And so what's happening now is that opportunities are being afforded, and you do stand out. If you're good at what you do, if you have the credentials and you know what you're doing, you're professional, then being a woman right now is an asset.
Yeah. This tough economic climate, how have you been managing to stay afloat?
It has been a very tough economic climate. And in fact, I was just reading the other day of just how tough it really was. Even for very large and successful design firms, the cuts that they survived have been reduced by about
significantly.
Yeah, 50%. We just had just enough namesake to attract one or two large enough clients to. We were not yet, though, I think, well enough insulated from recession.
Right.
By 2008, we had been a firm for 7 years, and we enjoy the success of phenomenal African Burial Ground. Gave us, international recognition. But in terms of having the right combination of clients, the right ratio of public to private. I don't think we had enough of a good cross section of clients. It wasn't a perfect storm, whereas some of our financial resources were changing form. In other words, we had a revolving line of credit that turned into a term loan just when we would have needed it to subsidize
for extra support.
Cash flow. Well, yeah. And some of our calling contracts, had expiration dates. So they all kind of expired all 2008.
Yes.
So literally 2008, we lost about an employee per month. And so that was really, really quite a challenge.
Bouncing back from that, have you been able to get back to where you were, or are you just sliding back into that whole stream of where you started in just before 2008?
Where we are right now is definitely a rebound.
Okay.
Like the rest of the globe, really, it's not the kind of rebound that everyone is looking for. But we're definitely doing better. I mean, we're 3 quarters into this year, so it's very easy to see that we did a lot better this year than we did last year. Now I do understand how to create a more recession-proof business. And as a business person, I'm now more experienced. As architects, we have strong math skills.
Yes.
So the math is not the issue.
Yes.
Crunching the numbers is not the issue. It's the actual attention. You have such a strong passion for your craft that really anything else feels like, misallocation of time, which it probably is. So what I did learn is the importance of having key people that are going to really understand the financial aspects to the business.
Yes.
And be able to perform accordingly, especially now. Doing business is not what it was 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
If you're going to engage business with public agency, you really should have a manager who has a financial background, some sort. So it's quite a full-time occupation, and it should be someone whose passion is to see the financial health
of the business.
Right. So that was not my passion.
Share some insights, especially with young women coming out of school and getting into the industry. What can you share with some of our youngsters?
It is an industry where if you want to be a designer, you have to check yourself first and ask yourself, are you a designer? Is that what you really want?
Right.
And you may or may not be, and there's actually a strong planning background that you should have. Maybe you're more of a planner. So I think understanding your skill set and what you want out of the industry, I think, is very important. If you're going to strike out on your own in terms of business, you should have a certain amount of understanding of how the business works. If you yourself don't have an MBA, you should have somebody very vested in the business who does. Get started, if we're talking about creating a small business, you definitely have to have a substantial contract. I see too many young people say, they have, their uncle's house that they're going to do an extension and start their own business. That is not sustainable. And,
many in the industry struggle with wearing many hats. You are an architect. You own your own firm. You're a mother. Juggling different jobs, throughout the day. How do you cope?
Very good question. Very good question. And it is a challenge. It is a challenge, and it's a process that you grow into. Referencing back to one of your earlier questions about young women coming into the field. One thing that's very important is to understand that you need a support network. For me, I mean, it's taken quite some time. Only recently, really, my children are getting a little bit older now. So the idea for me is a little simpler now. I have the support in place. My husband Patrick is extremely supportive, and I think that's something that we need to consciously think about.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely.
we keep each other very engaged in what we're doing, so you know we cheer each other on. So,
Nice.
you know, so he doesn't have to wonder how my day is going.
Yes.
You know, he
Yes.
knows what my day is like and is supportive. So
Right.
if there's any conflict of schedule, we do sit down and work it out, and that's very important. In terms of childcare, again, I'm very lucky, and it's something that has to be consciously worked out. Otherwise, it's very hard to maintain. I'm very lucky. My mother is very healthy and
Blessing.
very youthful,
Yes.
and extremely supportive. And she just enjoys being with my girls, and so that's a huge you have to, in a way, be mindful of your emotional capital.
Yes. Yes.
And you have to know when your credit is, you know, overdue.
Yes.
And you have to start putting back.
Running low.
Yes.
Yes.
And you have to start, you know, giving back the quality time. One key component, and I'm just now starting to master it, is that when you're at work, you're at work.
Right.
You know, I am training everyone to, if it's an interruption, you know, unless it's some kind of, you know, real emergency,
Right.
Keep it down for 30 seconds, you know, get it done, you know, and I'm at work. Likewise, when I'm at home,
Yes.
you know, it took some clients a little, you know, adjustment.
Yes.
It's going to be hard to reach me. If it's after hours,
Yes.
unless it's something that was agreed and planned and
Right.
this kind of thing.
Right.
When I'm at home, I'm at home. But there are some days you just need to say, you know what? Let's just skip this one.
Enough is enough.
Let's just skip this day.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
and regroup and recalculate
Yes.
and, you know, absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being a part of this interview. What you've shared with us thus far, I think would be very fulfilling to our audience, and especially for our young architects, young thriving architects who are looking to venture into the industry. With all the challenges that's already out there, I think your advice lends some great strength. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you very much.